Hi, Stacy Rothgeb, MBA student at the University of Denver. I'm talking about the session, What is the Future of Housing? In this session, this is a session that I kind of debated back and forth if I would attend. One, it's very related to what I do, and actually the companies that were up on that panel are all companies I've talked to, even though I did not know any of these individuals. I think one of them I might have talked to, but I'm always in that debate is like, do I go to a conference to reinforce what I already know, or do I want completely new content? I went because I wanted to see how they brought it together and talked to this audience. I was hoping there would be some audience questions because that would be very interesting. So the topic, what is the future of housing? This was definitely talking a lot about industrialized construction, which is the concept of industrializing the construction process. We've been building the same way for 100 years. We need to build better, differently. We need to apply industrialized techniques of batch production and the efficiencies that we see in manufacturing today if we're going to change the housing market so that housing is more cost effective and accessible to everyone. So a lot of our homelessness issues are because housing is just unreasonably costed. There's not enough of it. And I think these are the steps that we need to take to get there. So the panel was moderated by Ali Wolf with Zoda. I've actually talked to others in this company before. She cited a ton of really interesting statistics related to the housing market that were very recent that I had not seen. So it's on my to-do list to reach out to her and get her slide deck and probably have some follow-up conversations because I want to cite her work. Also on this panel was Todd Anderson with Oakwood Homes. Oakwood's a fairly large production builder. They've made some innovative moves, or they've proclaimed some desire to address affordable housing more, look at industrialized construction techniques more. They're doing some manufactured housing type things. They're looking more at panelized and pod systems. I know that Oakwood Homes was recently bought out by Clayton Homes, which is a big time player, the biggest player in both manufactured and volumetric modular housing. So anyway, that was an interesting thing. And I will say Todd, looking at the board, I mean, he's a veteran. He is someone that's been in the industry for probably 40 years, has seen the come and gone with it. And it's an example where he was more of a traditional builder and is just getting into the industrialized construction market. Charlie Cupp with Fading West. Fading West is a new modular manufacturing company on the western slopes in Colorado. They've only been in operation for maybe 5 years, probably not even that long. They are super successful. I know they're built out for, they're bought out. They have a production line that is 3 to 5 years out right now. It's actually a company that we keep trying to connect with, and we can't get in the door because they have no reason to talk to us. They're just too busy, and that's great because they're doing good things. So I wanted to hear what they had to say. The last one on the panel was Michael Harper. He's the one I think I might have been on a call with Icon, and Icon does 3D printed homes. Again, we've tried to do some work with them in the past, come or go. So we have 3 different markets that were represented. So the 3D printed homes, volumetric modular, which was Fading West, and then Oakwood Homes that's just doing some panels and pods. So how did the discussion go? Well, let me throw out a couple of the interesting statistics that I heard from Ali. One was that 35% of homes are selling to cash buyers. And what this means is that, this goes back to that point of inaccessibility, is that if a third of the market is people that have 100% cash on hand to buy their homes, again, it's going to a more affluent community, which says that people who don't have cash, first-time buyers, low and medium income buyers, they can't compete with a cash buyer because a cash buyer doesn't need the financing. Usually they can move quicker, they don't have any kind of conditions on their buy, so they're a low risk for the seller to go with. So it influences the market and makes it even harder for people to get into the market. The other thing that was said was that 42% of homeowners own their home with no mortgage. And that is a big change over the last 5 to 10 years, where people are staying in their homes. It goes back to that cash market, buying it, holding that equity, but it contributes to that divide of the haves and the have-nots. As if you have that wealth building of property ownership, that people are holding that so much, and it shows that it's becoming harder and harder for people who don't have that inherent equity, that inherent wealth, to get into this market and start building that wealth. So some interesting things. Todd Anderson, as I said, he was Oakwood Homes. I think I wasn't super impressed with him. I think he didn't see the audience well. There were a number of things he cited or examples he gave that created a divide. Like, they asked him about housing affordability and why homes cost so much. Most of the conversation was why homes are so expensive. Why it's such a inflated market right now. And he started wanting to complain about regulatory barriers, which, yes, there are regulatory barriers, but really what I heard him say was that the owners like himself are greedy. In one moment he's talking about how hard it is for him. Oh, he has a supply chain issue. It makes it hard. Oh, this labor union is giving him a hard time. But then he's talking about buying his second home, and he's talking about all the challenges of his daughter's very expensive wedding. And, so I think he didn't play that very well at all. Talking to Charlie Chupp with Fading West, he talked about some of the costing. He also talked about zoning and codes. And the reason, I don't know that it came off very clearly, but the reason modular manufacturers are very challenged by codes is because building codes tend to be state by state. And for when you're building a volumetric modular where you want to ship to multiple states, that means that you almost have to build differently for each of those, and that's a huge challenge, especially with inspections and regulations and getting your permits passed and getting so it's a huge challenge, and it's something I know the federal government is working on. So that was his big thing, and it's time for the codes to change, is basically what he was saying. Oh, an interesting stat that I hadn't heard too, that I want to find the citation for, is that NHB had stated that out of a typical home that was somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000, $100,000 of the cost is purely related to soft cost associated with the codes process. I knew it was great. I've heard numbers. I hadn't heard that number. Finally was Michael Harper with Icon. His biggest thing he was talking about was labor shortages. I hear this all the time. I think it's a very true statement. You can't build homes fast enough because you can't find people to do it. And if you have a labor shortage, it leads to housing shortage, and lack of supply leads to higher cost. They're doing 3D printing. Their solution is automation. I think there's going to be a huge place for automation. Anyway, so did I learn something? Absolutely. I had all kinds of great statistics. This was a very well-run panel, so there was great learnings there. And I think I now have names for some of the, like as I was saying, I've been trying to get a hold of Fading West, and now I know who to reach out to. It was a good session. Thanks.